Folks, John-Rd.2 back again. Round 2, the Tata Steel Chess 2017 Masters Edition. Really, I think this is the game of the round. As white, current world champion from Norway, Magnus Carlsen, rated 2840. And from Poland is black. I can never pronounce his last name right. I'm sure I'll get corrected in the comments here in the video. Wojtaszek? Oh, whatever. He's a great player. He's from Poland. Let's get to it. It's going to be a Cecilia Nadorf. Now, you can put on a head of a pin what I know about the Sicilian. I don't like to play against it. I don't like to play it. But this new move here, we go the usual knight takes. Knight f6, knight c3, a6. Now, chess is kind of like fashion in a way. You get the top players start playing a certain move, and everybody starts to play it. Well, this move here, bishop c4, bishop e3, h3, there's a lot of moves here. a3 seems to be the move in fashion. And if you see in some variations later, what that does is it stops this annoying check here. e5, knight f5, knight back to f3 would have been good as well. d5 opens it up right away. Bishop g5 for Magnus. Now that's a little annoying, to be perfectly frank. d4 is probably a good move, which he does. Bishop takes. Now, we can go back and forth on this, and the computer bears this out. G takes is the better move by over almost a point and a half. There's some merit to queen takes, but pawn takes is the much better move, I believe. But he plays queen takes anyway. If he had played g takes, knight b1, queen b6 is interesting. But after queen takes, knight d5, hitting the queen, and queen goes right back. And here's a move that I don't think Wojtaszek thought of. Queen g4, that's a lot more annoying than you think. Yeah, he put himself into a pin, but there's all kinds of threats going on here. Bishop takes, queen takes, bishop d6. Now, I think slowly but surely, black is losing the thread here. He had a pretty good position, and somehow it just got messed up. Now, this is a move that Magnus took a very long time on, 17 minutes. Now, the time controls for this are 100 minutes with a 30-second increment for 40 moves, and then after that is 50 minutes with a 30-second increment. And he went h4, and that was computer's choice as well. And that does a lot of things. As you can see, as this pawn starts coming down, it's going to be very annoying. And on top of that, this rook, you can do a rook lift. We're going to have to see what happens. Knight c6, bishop c4. You're going to see that light squared bishop for white is a monster, absolute monster. b5, kicking the bishop, bishop goes back to b3. I might have put him back to a2, but that's splitting hairs. Knight e7, queen to g4, with a lot of threats there. There's a g-pawn being threatened. I mean, what does he do? Black has the castle, basically, to guard the pawn, plus protect his king. And here comes the rook lift. Now, the part that scares the crap out of me as I'm doing this, I had the computer on off screen. Carlsen is picking either the best move of the computer or the second best move. That's pretty scary stuff. Knight takes. The bishop takes. Harassing the rook. Rook goes to a7. Not that great of a spot, but in a way it kind of is. It's help guarding this pawn and this pawn as well. Magnus kind of plays what I call caveman style. Rook g3, threatening mate, of course, on g7. Now, there's several ways maybe black can deal with this. I don't like g6 right now. I think it weakens the king side too much. Goes queen f6. Magnus does an interesting move. The computer likes a castle along for white and h5. But Magnus, I think, makes a very, very smart move here. He goes a4. Now, the computers that we use, me included, they don't really look at strategy. Now, I want to tell you, at this point, we're on move 20. Black's clock is really getting low on time. And Magnus maybe has 20 minutes. If I'm doing this from memory, 4 or 5 minutes for black. And he's causing the most complications that he can. Decided to check. The king just goes back to f1, which is a good spot. King is nice and safe. Pawn takes. Rook takes. And now a5. That's a good spot for that bishop. It hems in the rook. It eyeballs this diagonal. At least it's getting some use. Rook to a1. The rook just goes back. Rook c7. Bishop goes back. And rook a8. He wants to push the pawn. As you can see, you push. If bishop takes, the rook just comes over. Now you have to be careful. After all these exchanges, you don't want the mate to come here after the rooks are gone. So you're going to have to wait around for that. King to g1. Magnus just secures his king. And this guy is just so cool under pressure. He's got the superior position. It's really hard to play black. He's really low on time. I was a little surprised at this move, frankly. I think maybe rook to a6, rook to b8, any one of those. You want bishop f8. Yeah, I can understand he wants to protect g7. Was that really bishop really doing a ton out there? No, not really, but queen h5. Boy, I'll tell you, the pressure's on black. g6. That's basically what he wanted. Now the queen goes back to g4. He caused the weakness. Rook a6. Not so thrilled with that move, frankly. I think queen f4 might have been better. Almost forcing, but not quite, but forcing the trade of queens. But he's incredibly low on time. Remember, there is a 30-second increment. Rook a6. Just trying to extra guard the g6 square, but here it comes, h5. Now he decides to go queen here. The only difference is this pawn isn't on this square anymore. Isn't on, I'll use the red, this square anymore. So when the queen does move, queen can't take the pawn. Big difference. So he goes queen to e2. Queen goes back. Black desperately wants to trade queens. Queen b5. Queen c6, trying to trade again. Magnus takes the pawn. That was a really, really key pawn. Now those of you keeping score, Magnus is now up a pawn. Rook e7. Queen comes back. a4, hitting the bishop. Bishop just goes to d5. Now we're on move 33, and black is down with a minute and change, and there's a 30-second increment. He's running on fumes here. And this is where he miscues. Queen takes c2 is the best of the bad moves. But he goes queen c7, and that's the beginning of the end. Now, queen d2. Queen b6, pick the pawn. Now a really interesting move, and I didn't see this. It's one of the top computer moves. That's why he's the world champion and we're not. Rook a2 to guard that pawn. Rook c7. Now the rook comes over. And look at what's going on here. Queen b4. Desperately trying to trade queens. Magnus wants no part of it. Rook b6. Now, I didn't care for this move much. I think maybe queen d1 was in order. g3 maybe. He took, and he took. And that was a threat that was there the whole time. And sometimes a threat is stronger than the move itself. Then he went g3. Cool character, though. We're on move 39. They're coming up on the time control. King g7. Magnus moves his king. Just taking his time. Rook d7. He knows he's got him. He knows he's got him. Queen d1. Rook f6. Rook takes. Rook takes. Excuse me. King takes. Queen of g4 is a good move. But Magnus decides to go just c3. I think even better might have been queen of g4. Then after rook a7, rook a1, bishop h6. And black is doomed. The queen is going to get in. But Magnus decides to go c3, pawn takes, and then rook takes. And that's where black had enough and throws in the towel. I'll give you an idea. After queen moves, say to d6, pawn takes, and he's up 2 full pawns. And his king is right out in the open. So he had enough. So, well played game by Magnus. Showed a lot of positional skill. Well, that's why he's the world champion, but this is Magnus at the top of his form, where he takes a small advantage and slowly piles and piles and piles on it until it becomes an overwhelming advantage. Well, anyway, folks, that's my game from round 2 of the 79th edition of Tata Steel Chess 2017. I hope you enjoyed it. Look for other videos from this tournament, one of my favorites. And right towards the end of this tournament starts another favorite of mine, the Gibraltar tournament. And there'll be a lot of great players in that. It's an open tournament, world-class players. You don't see that much. And I want you to remember, if you think chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.